Have you ever feared that anything you do or anywhere you go has a darker side to it? Well, get ready for these two true scary time travel stories. I spent 2.5 weeks backpacking in Olympic National Park. The weirdness happened about a week in. I say about because the memory and the timetable of events is a bit fuzzy. I remember that I'd gone backpacking the day before. This game trail I'd been following starting to widen a little, and by midday of the second day, I reached an abandoned cabin. It had obviously been neglected for a long time. The roof was covered in moss, and the wooden walls seemed to be suffering from rot. Some weather seemed like it was going to move into the area, so I thought I'd take a break inside. It had a musty smell like wet stone, damp crawl space, and rotting wood. Despite the smell, the cabin was quite spacious, incredibly so actually. There were 2 rooms, I remember, and a third door that went down a long, gently sloping stone tunnel that led down to what I assume was a cellar. Looking back, I don't see how such a feature wouldn't have been visible from the outside, but there it was. I turned on a flashlight and started walking down. It went on for an incredibly long distance. I had gone about 100 yards, and my flashlight beam just faded into the darkness when I shone it down the path ahead. This was not a cellar. There was a stifling, claustrophobic silence that seemed to press down on me the further I went. The darkness was distorting, and I felt almost intoxicated. I'd probably stumbled on a pocket of poorly oxygenated air. Whatever it was, I'm glad I had enough sense left to nope the fuck out of there pretty quickly. Here's the strange thing though. I know I couldn't have gone more than 100 or 200 yards down that tunnel. I wasn't inside that cabin for even an hour. But by the time I got out of the cabin, it was morning. I spent the better part of a day inside. Needless to say, I backtracked and got the fuck out of there. A couple of weeks ago, my friend's dad told me a pretty bizarre story that scarred me for life. About 15 years ago, my friend's parents, Steve and Julie, were woken up at 1 a.m. to a very loud thud that rattled the house. Worried that one of the kids had fallen out of the bunk bed, Steve went downstairs to check on them, but all 3 kids were sound asleep and safe in their beds. Julie told Steve to check the house in case of intruders, so Steve checked the doors and windows before going outside to take a look. After 10 minutes of investigating the noise, Steve came across nothing unusual and went back inside to go to bed. He found his wife absolutely worried sick, and she demanded to know where the hell he had gone and what happened. Confused and tired, Steve told her he found nothing and tried to calm her down before Julie pointed out that it was now 4 a.m. and that he'd been missing for 3 hours. Julie had even gone outside to check on him, and he was nowhere to be found, and didn't respond to her calling his name. Unable to figure out what happened, they returned to bed and slept until Steve had to get up for work in a few hours. Steve owns a painting business, and a couple hours after working on a house, he noticed his eyes started to feel itchy. Then his eyes started to burn. Then after a couple hours, his eyes burned so badly that he was holding his eyelids open as he did not blink because it felt like his lids were sandpaper against his eyes. His employees rushed him to the hospital, and Steve was treated for second-degree flash burns on his eyes. He was told his burns were equivalent to staring at a welder's torch without eye protection for an extended period of time. His eyes were treated, and he was lucky to have his vision fully restored. He is one of the most stand-up guys I know, and the way he told me the story gave me the fucking creeps. Dead serious and no explanation for what happened. His wife was there too, and she was visibly upset when he was telling me that story.